Good day. Thank you for joining our webinar, Your Journey to the SAP Cloud, Reduce Implementation Time and Cost with SpinifexIT Suite. I'm Vanessa, and joining me shortly is our host and presenter, Stephen Gallo. But before we begin, I'd share with you some tips and reminders so you can maximize this session. You're currently using the On24 webinar viewer. You will see our slides on the left side of the screen and the Q&A panel to the right. You may type in your questions throughout the session, and time permitting, we'll have them answered during our Q&A session. Now, if you have any additional questions after the webinar, please send them over to info@spinifexit.com, and we will answer you promptly. This webinar is also recorded. An on-demand version for this webinar will be available within the next 48 hours. Interested attendees who were not able to register or attend today can also access a rerun of this webinar by going to our website at www.spinifexit.com/video around 48 hours after this webcast. So that's all for our webinar guidelines. I will now hand you over to Stephen. Stephen?
Thanks, Vanessa. So welcome, everybody. My name is Stephen Gallo. I'm the product architect for North America, and I'm kind of going to take you through a conversation today. It seems in 2017, the question of the moment is, what are you guys doing with the cloud? And these questions came from our existing customers, and they came from customers who are not on SAP and are just starting their journey to the cloud. And even came from people who have no intention of going to the cloud for 2 years, but they want to know, where does our software fit? And we do have some customers who have already gone that route. So what I'd like to do today is take you through some of the things that our software is good at as you make your move to the cloud. Could you go to the agenda slide for me, Vanessa? What we're going to do is we're just going to go over a brief company overview about SpinifexIT and our products. We're then going to look at the system landscapes that are out there as you move to the cloud. So we all get on the same page. Not everybody is familiar with how your system gets set up when you make the move. I'll try to give you some guidelines of what these things look like. We'll then do a quick overview of what the cloud migration lifecycle is, because once we understand that, then we can see how Easy Reporter can help you out with the cloud migration lifecycle. We'll take a quick look in our demo system of some of the capabilities of Easy Reporter with Employee Central. And we even have an added bonus. We're going to take a little sneak peek at our Payroll Control Center functionality that we've added into the product. And then, of course, at the end, we will do questions and answers. So before we get into the meat and guts of this presentation, let's just cover a few things off real quick. For those of you who don't know us, we've been an SAP certified partner and, more importantly, a certified developer for the past decade. As you may know, what you may not know is that we are the only reporting add-on approved to work right now on SAP Employee Central Payroll. And it's not just our reporting product either. All of our products are certified for ECP, Employee Central Payroll. But people ask us, so how does your software, what does your software in the cloud get me? Well, as customers move to the cloud, we still close the gap on the transactional reporting data inside of SAP, and that doesn't change. We let you build reports with the data inside of SAP and allow you to process that in a meaningful way and get your output without doing manual intervention with things like Excel. And as we move to the cloud, we've applied all we know, trying to make the SAP user experience better with our SuccessFactors connector and our UI5 reporting. What you'll see today is how we can help you move, how you make that move to Employee Central easier by doing it faster and, of course, cheaper. I'll cover with you all the ways in which we do that. And some of these are even things that our customers have already done. As always, though, everything that we've been working on lately still follows our mantra of making the tools easy to set up and easy to install so you see your return on investment immediately. So let's do some overview first about some system landscapes you might see as you make your move to the cloud. There are many different landscapes that you will encounter, so hopefully this educates you on some of the options for those of you who don't know. I'd like to go over a few of the most common ones on the following slides. We just got 2 slides, so at least as we go through the rest of this conversation, we're all on the same page and terminology. So to start, on the left, we have what some would say is the first step to the cloud. This is a hybrid model where you're simply moving just your employee master data to Employee Central. You're still retaining all your key on-premise modules such as payroll, time, and benefits. And in this scenario, the SpinifexIT software lives on your on-premise system. The scenario to the right, though, is kind of a higher jump to the cloud. In this case, you're offloading much of your infrastructure and processing to software and service vendors. Here you're running your payroll on SAP's Employee Central Payroll. The master data lives in Employee Central, and the payroll is processed on one of SAP's Employee Central Payroll servers. Employee Central Payroll is the same engine used in your on-premise ECC environment. It's the same exact thing you're used to. It does have a few enhancement limitations that we're not going to be covering today, but it works really well. The biggest change about this slide on the right here about moving to this platform is you'll also have to move your time and benefits to a software as a service vendor as well. So these vendors work with Employee Central and Employee Central Payroll system so that the employee's hours and benefits are calculated properly. However, you can see looking at this that it is drastically different than using the standard SAP modules for these applications. Of course, once your payroll is run in the ECP environment, you still transfer that posting data over to your on-premise system, which has all your finance and logistics applications. In this case, looking at that slide, the solutions live, SpinifexIT solutions live in Employee Central Payroll. So here's the big one, S4 HANA. Everybody's always talking, what's HANA, what's S4? So essentially, HANA is just a database, and it's a fast one at that. We have some pretty cool stuff we're building from a payroll reporting side that's running really, really quickly. However, so the HANA is essentially a database. The S4 portion of it is SAP's Business Suite 4, which includes the Simple Finance and Simple Logistics, and those products only run on HANA. S4, however, does include the same payroll, time, and benefits that you're used to. Your organization may be going through implementing the S4 solutions. You might also be migrating to Employee Central at the same time. We definitely had a customer who just did that. Your landscape might look like the diagram on the left, which is very similar to the prior slides on on-premise. You have your on-prem S4 HANA system, and you're putting your master data in Employee Central. There's also, on the right, an S4 HANA cloud solution. SAP's cloud S4 solution, however, doesn't really have the payroll and time that we know. So if your organization is going full cloud HANA, then its recommended route is to use Employee Central Payroll for your payroll engine. Again, SpinifexIT solutions live in the payroll system. Essentially, to sum up with these slides, the Spinifex suite always lives in the payroll system. That's our landscape overview, to kind of get us all on the same page. But now, let's talk about the migration process and how Spinifex can help this process be a little less painful. Next slide. Thanks, Vanessa. All right. So before we get into exactly how Easy Reporter is going to help with all these processes, let's understand these processes. In its simplest form, it's essentially a system migration. With any system migration, you can sum up the process into 4 steps, and you might come up with your own 4. These are my 4. You have your data cleansing, your data transformation and load, your data synchronization, and then, of course, continuing your business processes in the new system. As we talk about these processes, we are making the assumption that you're moving your data from an existing SAP system into a similar landscape we showed earlier. I say similar as there are many different ways you can have your system set up. I just kind of showed 4 of the most popular. But let's go over these steps, because then we're going to apply these steps using our solutions. So data cleansing. Data cleansing can be described as taking a deep look at your data to find records that are maybe missing or invalid. This could mean populating blank data that you will need in the new system, or even removing unwanted characters like pound signs and an address. The data transformation and load is the process for taking your now clean data and uploading it into the new system. This sometimes involves translation of the data into flat files. For example, you could have a demographic feed that contains your employee's gender. In your system, you have a 1 and a 2 for male and female. However, the new system requires an M or an F. Data synchronization. Data synchronization is not always a relevant step in a system migration, but with Employee Central, going to Employee Central, it is necessary. So this is the process of ensuring that all your systems of record match. With Employee Central being the source of the truth for your HR data, we need to ensure that the data provided to the payroll system is accurate to ensure a correct pay, right? And finally, once all this is moved as a company, you still need to continue with the business processes you currently do today. Compliant, audit reporting, per period reporting, head counting, that list goes on and on. So before we start breaking these processes out and showing how SpinifexIT can help, let's just take a quick look at some of the data to get an idea on how this process might play out during the migration. So, quick little screenshot here. As an example, let's take a look at the org structure as the data source that might change when you move from ECC to your SAP system to Employee Central. This slide shows an example of an employee's organizational information in Employee Central. We're seeing terms that we're not used to seeing in ECC. Things like department, division, location. We might infer these things when we look at the ECC data as we've designed it that way, but they're not always a one-for-one field mapping in all cases. What I'm trying to explain is that what you're used to in ECC is different when you move to Employee Central. And it is different enough that it can impact your data load, your data validation, and your reporting in general out there. So let's take a look now at each of these processes and see how Easy Reporter can help you mitigate any of this risk and simplify your migration. Let's cover the first few steps in this process. Let's talk about cleaning your data and loading it into Employee Central. In the end, your goal is to get your data into a format to use the Employee Central Employee Central Import Employee Data tool. With this tool, you create flat files for certain areas of data and you upload them into the system. SAP does have a rapid deployment solution, they call it. It allows you to load the data in a slightly different way. However, I do find this method slightly simpler. That's what we're going to talk about today, and we've definitely got a customer who does this. So examples of this data to be loaded could be like the employee details, such as your job and the compensation of employee, or just some simple biographical information, such as the employee's gender and race. Each of these areas is its own flat file, and the nice part is that depending on what fields you're using in Employee Central, the tool will give you a template that needs to be filled out, and this template is essentially a CSV file. What I'm getting at here is that you can use Easy Reporter to populate this template and load your data out of your existing SAP system without having to write any code. So how does Easy Reporter help out with this? Well, to start, you may know Easy Reporter has a powerful interface builder that does not require ABAP to use. You can just take any report that you created and have it output it in the file format required by the vendor. In this case, Employee Central, and in this case, CSV file. A few other features of Easy Reporter lend itself, however, to this process. So Easy Reporter can help you translate the data. For example, you might have to populate in Employee Central the division field. Division, for your migration, could be a combination of personal, area, and org unit. Who knows what it might be? Everybody's org structure is slightly different. But based on those certain combinations, you still need to output the correct division value. With Easy Reporter, we have mapping technology that makes this process fairly simple, as it can be performed right in your report. You can load your transformation logic up from Excel, and the nice part about Easy Reporter is as your project changes, you can make changes to the report on the fly, right? You don't have to code and retest interfaces or go through some arduous process out there, making changes as your implementation changes, and it does, as we all know. It's a whole lot simpler with Easy Reporter. Also, so that's the loading of the data, the transformation of the data. When it comes to finding missing data or invalid characters that cleanse, Easy Reporter has filtering technology to help you find people with the bad data quickly. So I always use address. Addresses are always a pain. People put a pound sign in their suite number or commas in a street address, and they don't belong there. And Easy Reporter has two methods to handle this. You can either use Easy Reporter to find and then go correct the invalid data, which is what I recommend you do, or if you don't want to go through that process, you can actually translate the data and remove those improper characters as the file is being built. So in real time, there are methods in Easy Reporter will dynamically take that stuff out. Next slide. Thank you. And what I just talked about, someone did. We definitely have a customer who put this together. They were actually kind enough to share some of their upload files for this. So this is an example of what they did. You can see on the right that they built a report that is technically an interface for each different section of the data they had to populate in Employee Central. And then they used the Employee Central employee import load to read these files and create the employees. We have a fairly decent library available in our system. We haven't pre-delivered it yet with our solution. We will. But what we have right now, we're happy to share with you should you be going down the route of migrating to Employee Central. Note that these templates will require tweaking. As the template from Employee Central and what to load changes depending on what fields you're using in Employee Central. So keep that in mind. This was a question that came up the other day for those of you who attended the HR 2017 conference. What about the payroll data, right? What if we're going live mid-year and things like that? Well, we've covered how to populate Employee Central, but let's talk about the payroll side of the fence for a minute. We have a tool for that, and it's called EasyClone. And typically customers purchase EasyClone to copy data from a production to QA or dev systems to kind of validate their data. If you have a problem in production, can't recreate it, copy the person down to QA or dev, fix them, and then you know what to do. Production. You can use EasyClone to populate your new cloud system as well. It's as simple as setting up an RFC between the two systems. You can bring over the payroll and whatever info types you want to bring over. Most of the info type data probably will be handled through replication. However, if you want the payroll history, EasyClone is a real simple way to do it. And we'll make one note In here, system does not go from Unicode to non-Unicode, so you have to keep that in mind if you're going Employee Central Payroll. Their database is Unicode, so if you're non-Unicode, our solution will not work with that. But we are, once again, working on improving that solution. Okay. So now that we've got the data loaded, it needs to be replicated. So this is another step in our process, right? We need to keep this data in sync. And this process is typically handled by something like Boomi or SAP's point-to-point integration in Employee Central. And let's look at our example again from earlier. Here we're showing the org structure, what it looks like in Employee Central. And let's use location as an example for our synchronization right here. The location here on this slide says Sydney. It's over there on the right-hand side. And in your org structure inside of SAP, location could be a combination of personal area and sub area. At least it should. So when the location's updated in Employee Central, your replication process should kick in and set the correct personal area and sub area inside of your SAP system. Parramatta is a suburb of Sydney, for those of you who are curious, looking at the personal sub area in the screenshot. So we can see in this example that the replication appears to have worked. So replication programs, of course, have logs too. If something failed, you'll probably be notified. The question, however, still remains, though, that if something did fail, how do you know that it got fixed, right? Well, with Easy Reporter, you can speed up the time it takes to test your replication process and ensure it's working. You will have a scenario, just like we spoke about in the last slide, about where you're comparing Sydney to a certain personal area, sub-area combination. You could even be comparing something like employment status. You need the technology in Easy Reporter to do this. Is not only do you have to bring in the EC, the Employee Central value, and compare it to the ECC, the SAP value in your report, but you have to translate it, right? The employment status of active, let's use that as an example, could have a code value of 1801 in Employee Central. However, you need to translate that to the correct value of 3, which means active in SAP. And then you can compare the values. So you have to do the translation first. The nice part about all this stuff is when you actually go live, you can be confident that your data is in sync using a tool like Easy Reporter. Also, using the same processes you defined during implementation, they can be executed in production at go live. It's not just an implementation process. Maybe you run the sync check process the day before you run payroll to check for errors. Maybe you run it every night. Either way, you can be confident that your data is going to match up your source data in Employee Central with your data inside of SAP. So we've now covered 3 of our 4 process steps: data cleansing, data load, ensuring synchronization. And now we can talk about how SpinifexIT products will support you after go live. We just said that the synchronization checks should be performed after go live, but let's be honest. You purchased our tool for the ability to extract data out of SAP in a meaningful way, so let's focus on that. For a brief moment, let's go with the notion that you don't have Easy Reporter and you did all the prior steps that we talked about manually. You're also getting the impression that the move to the cloud will be different. It's new, it's shiny, it's supposedly better. So with that, let's take a look at the delivered reporting options you get when you move to Employee Central. These slides kind of go a little quick, so I'll try to talk a little slow. But to start with, all customers of Employee Central get a tool dubbed, of course, Ad Hoc Query. It's designed to work not just for Employee Central, it also works for other modules and success factors. We're obviously focusing on the Employee Central portion of it for this. And what it does, and it lives up to its name, right? It's just like the ad hoc query that we're used to in SAP. You pick the data set you want to report on. You check the fields you want to put on your report, like first name and last name that you see here in the middle. And then essentially, on our next slide, it outputs it for you in Excel, right? There's a little bit of filtering and selection capabilities that come with the tool, but it's essentially a data dump, right? It's ad hoc query in the cloud, it's ad hoc query that's in standard SAP, kind of the same thing. You also get this tool called ORD, the Online Report Designer. And this tool is a little more powerful. It allows you to visualize the data that you're reporting, as well as do some sorting, subtotaling, and grouping. But it's just reporting on the Employee Central data. There are no tools for reporting the transactional payroll or time data inside of SAP with Employee Central. But that's okay, right? Because in SAP on-prem or ECP, you still have Wage Type Reporter and you have Payroll Recon to dump out your data. You can dump your data from Employee Central with ad hoc query and then pull the payroll data out of SAP and put it together in something like Excel. Obviously, especially for those of you who know me, I'm being passive here. What I'm getting at is even though you're moving to the shiny new cloud, the same reporting challenges you have today will still exist if you don't have Easy Reporter. And in some ways, it's even more complex. Instead of dumping your data at SAP, you now have to go to SuccessFactors ad hoc query to get some of your HR data as well. I don't want this to sound like I'm knocking all of the SAP delivered solutions. There are some neat stuff that ORD has out of the box to do certain things very well. But we still believe that Easy Reporter is the best solution for reporting your transactional payroll. And now, of course, it does include Employee Central data. So Easy Reporter is even more relevant now than it ever was as you make your move to the cloud. And why does that matter? The data is changing, and I know I keep beating this up. So this is an example of one of our customers' org structure. They didn't have the point-to-point integration that you get with ECP. They have their own on-premise system. And what they did was they just created some custom fields in their ERP system and put the Employee Central data in it, which is fine, right? And even if you have point-to-point, not everything out of the box is replicated, right? Point-to-point integration, a lot of these replication tools, they give you just enough to get your payroll calculated. But in some cases, you still need to report on this master data that's in Employee Central out there. What I'm driving to is that you're going to have to update many of your reports, whether you're using Easy Reporter or not. If you're just using plain old ABAP, these fields are going to change. Not everything might be replicated down there, or the values are just going to be different. And this could be one of those moments where you take all your ABAP reports that you know and love and you redo them in Easy Reporter, because Easy Reporter does provide you the fastest way to rebuild your reports. So when go live comes around, you're ready. Some reports you might not think have to be rebuilt as you're replicating most of your data, but you hate to go live and realize something is missing. At a minimum, Easy Reporter is your insurance policy to get unreplicated data, as Easy Reporter can seamlessly speak to Employee Central out there. I will provide also a little bit of advice here. For any report that you have that is mission critical, perhaps you have a report that you run every payroll and it has to finish in 10 minutes so you can analyze it and continue your payroll process. Ensure that those fields are replicated. In this new world, if we have to go get data from Employee Central, know that there is a lag. It will not perform as fast as getting the data directly from an SAP system, and that works with us, and it works even if you're coding your own stuff to go after SAP's third-party library of OData. Keep an eye on the changes you're making to the org structure as well, if you are making any changes. So I've noticed that this impacts pretty much all areas of reporting, from payroll to HR. We need to report pay by areas of a company, and of course the HR group needs to do headcounts by those areas. Small changes in the org structure could have a huge impact on the reports that you need to modify. In addition to the reports, however, with the data changing, you need to update your interfaces. Some people haven't, some people will definitely have. We saw earlier customers were creating interface loads to load Employee Central, but it still stands that with our tools, you can interface your HR and payroll data to any vendor using Easy Reporter. And again, no ABAP. Using Easy Reporter for interfaces can be beneficial, as every once in a while, interfaces change, right? With Easy Reporter, if you've built your interface with it, you're not going to have to go through the whole change management process of spec, developer, test, retest. You're probably just adding a new field or changing some filtering logic. So it is advantageous of you, if you do have to rebuild an interface, to do that with Easy Reporter. Let's sum some things up about Easy Reporter and how we can help you move to the cloud, right? Easy Reporter allows you to rapidly update your existing Easy Reports with the new Employee Central data, but it's not just limited to Easy Reports, right? You might have to update your ABAP reports as well, and Easy Reporter can quickly help you build those HR and payroll ABAP reports without having to deal with coding changes. You can use Easy Reporter to load your master data into Employee Central, right? That's a huge win right there, especially because we're pre-delivering some of the content to do that. And of course, it also depends, we can help you out with the synchronization, right? Is your data synchronized correctly during implementation? And then of course, you can test that process after go live, so you can ensure that you have a correct pay. Most importantly, we feel at SpinifeX that our solutions allow you to own your own destiny, right? Rely on our end user based tools to do the work as opposed to a consulting company. And we're about to get into the demonstration. Let's go to the next slide real quick. What you're going to see here, I just want to explain it real fast. So before we get into the demo, how does all this stuff work? At least the stuff that you're going to see. In a nutshell, the setup to do what I'm about to do takes about an hour. There are, of course, transports to load and a license for the Easy Reporter Employee Central functionality. But in reality, you're creating a user in SuccessFactors that has access to the SF API. The OData API in SuccessFactors is the only method for third parties to extract data out of SuccessFactors. You then essentially set up an RFC from your SAP system into SuccessFactors. You tell Easy Reporter about the user that you created and that RFC connection, and then you can generate your fields. Our solution does read and report on any of the fields that you've created in Employee Central. We also have a method to allow users to run our reports from our SuccessFactors, directly from SuccessFactors using our UI5 technology. Let's take a look at some simple examples inside the solution on how this works. I'm going to try to turn on my screen sharing here. Let's start with the data import, right? Like we said, we have to create interfaces to load our data into Employee Central. And this is our demo system out here. And you can see I have a bunch of the interfaces already done here to load that data. Like I said, it's broken down by area. So you might have to load your basic user information, which got like name, first name, employment information, phone numbers, work permits. Each different section of Employee Central has its own little load. And these things are essentially for users who already own our product. They're just a report with some fields on it, and we set it up in our output to go out to CSV. But we have all that technology in here to do some of the mappings and the things that you need to do out there. For example, gender, right? Your gender in our system might be male and female, but in essence, you need to load an M or an F, right? We have the way to just parse out that first character, the M or the F, out of the gender field so it gets passed over correctly, right? So you're really just building a nice report, dragging your field on like you know and love, and then outputting in CSV. And it ends up looking something like this, right? It's a CSV file. It's not glamorous, it's not pretty, but it works. And with Easy Reporter, we kind of make it simple to do that. So that's one step of the process. The second step is that whole synchronization piece. This is the second step in the process that we talked about, the data synchronization. And I'll try to give you some examples on how this works. Because one of the things that you can do is you can compare fields from your on-premise or your cloud SAP system with fields from Employee Central. You can report these things side by side. You can compare them. This is the simplest example. Does the first name match the first name that's in Employee Central? And we can tell you if it matches. Obviously, in a report, you'd probably only show things that don't match. For the sake of demonstration, we're showing both, right? And then it gets even more complex. I'm going to scroll slowly, so hopefully the screen catches up. Right, that's a one-for-one match. Does the first name or the last name, are they exactly the same? But then you get that other problem that I talked about, like status, right? You might have a status of 3 in SAP, which means you're active. That status code in SuccessFactors might be 1801. They're definitely different. You need to translate this status from 1801 to what it's supposed to, what that value means inside of SAP. And then you can, of course, compare, do they match, right? So you're now comparing these, and I'll leave the screen there so we can see it. You're now comparing these values as opposed to the status out of SuccessFactors out there to make sure they compare. And you can compare anything you want. In Easy Reporter, we have access to the full Employee Central per person API. And of course, we have the full info type system available to report on in Easy Reporter. The last thing that we talked about is your safety net, right? You can include in a payroll report fields from Employee Central, right? So we have this payroll report here. It's got gross, it's net, it's got 401k wages on it out there. You can see we're pulling in fields directly from Employee Central, department, name, division, business unit, right? This is your safety net, right? Ideally in a payroll report, you're going to be reporting on the replicated data because it's in the system and you need to run it in a timely manner. And I'm not saying this won't run in a super slow manner, but it's definitely not as fast as as we'd like it to be. But it is the safety net. If you have a payroll report and there's something that you didn't bring over, you'll eventually get it replicated, but you can still bring this stuff in onto a report. And this is not hard, right? We're talking about Easy Reporter here. We're literally taking fields from our lovely tree. Eventually, you'll get a new folder that says maybe SuccessFactors Employee Central when you turn on the integration. Then you have all these fields over here, like personal information might have your first name and last name in it, and it's essentially just a folder with fields in it, and you drag those fields onto your report, kind of like we did here. This is not glamorous, so everybody's like, ooh, let's see the new stuff. It's just a folder with some fields in it. Works the same way. All the things that you can do with Easy Reporter, mapping, filtering, selection, all that stuff is available here. You're just getting a new folder for SuccessFactors out there, Employee Central. I'm going to stop screen sharing and go back to the deck. All right. So we've kind of covered all of our steps, right? We talked about that whole data migration process, and we've seen the value that Easy Reporter, and we're going to sum this stuff up again in a few minutes. But this was our surprise for today. Let's talk about what we're doing with Payroll Control Center. This is a hot topic that we hear a lot, and Payroll Control Center is pretty slick. So we now have functionality that integrates with Payroll Control Center to help you reduce the cost of building all of your payroll exceptions. Before I get into that, let's talk about Payroll Control Center, PCC, and declustered payroll at a high level. These are terms that come up, and not everybody understands them 100%, so I'll try to educate you a little bit, at least at a high level. So to support the Payroll Control Center, SAP needed a faster way to report on the payroll data. The current payroll data is stored in a cluster data structure, and this is not a regular old database table. Let's just call it a fun file structure that's not really fast. You don't really have the ability to directly query the data to say, hey, pull me back all employees who made over $2,000 this period, or made 5% net more this period than last period. You actually have to read each employee one at a time to check their records to see if they met the criteria. The SAP declustered solution, however, will allow you to say, find me all hourly people who made over $2,000 this period, or find me an employee with a claim. The declustered solution works much faster, and it's kind of vital for Payroll Control Center out there, because Payroll Control Center is designed to work quickly, right? Let's quickly get through this payroll, let's find our errors and show them. One thing is you don't need HANA to decluster, as some people think. But note, it's only marginally faster without HANA. I will tell you that with HANA, payroll reporting is wicked fast. I'll just add another anecdote. A lot of customers are going HANA, but they're going in for finance reasons. You'll see, I see that a lot. If you're the payroll department and you hear that your company's going HANA, try to jump in on that project. I will tell you, Payroll Control Center is real slick. We're going to see some stuff in a sec. And it is wicked fast. We're building in all the declustered stuff into our solution. That's kind of an overview on declustered payroll. But what is Payroll Control Center? For those of you who don't know, it is the new shiny way to run your payroll process. And it's essentially a wizard that includes defined steps you can perform to process your payroll, from releasing the payroll areas, fixing exceptions, and then finally paying. It's like a glorified version of the process models, but there's a whole lot more functionality in here than what the process models gives you out there. Because one of the steps in the Payroll Control Center, you could go to the next slide, Vanessa. One of the steps is error checking, right? It's exception reporting, just like we said earlier. Find me all hourly people who made over $2,000 this period, or find me all people with claims. What SAP doesn't tell you is that each of these exceptions is actually ABAP code. And if you have anything beyond the 20 pre-delivered exceptions that they give you, you're going to have to code it yourself. And each customer I've engaged so far, what they wanted to do was not really included in the 20. In fact, it wasn't even really close, to be honest with you out there. I found every business is completely different, at least in the things that you check, right? Most of us on this phone, we're processing US payroll, right? That's very similar, but the things that we check based on our business processes are totally different. But with Easy Reporter, what we've done is you can simply build a report that contains your exception and then link that into Payroll Control Center. The report, as opposed to the code, becomes the medium that finds and shows you your exceptions. You can see in this example on the screenshot here that we're checking areas for payroll area QF. One person had an overpayment and other people had invalid positions. The gathering of that information was done via Easy Reporter. There was no code required. We just had to put some config in Payroll Control Center to enable the report as the exception engine. We've also added the ability to go beyond what Payroll Control Center delivers, we go beyond what Payroll Control Center delivers, where you can run reports about your payroll area in aggregate, as opposed to based on each individual exception, using our UI5 technology. So this screenshot shows a report run for a whole period, not just an employee. So for those of you who've seen prior webinars, if you want a demonstration of this, please contact us. We have a full UI5 reporting solution. It all started to go from MSS to ESS to get those reports nice and pretty, as opposed to using standard SAP portal. But we've now branched it out to do a lot of other things in here. So if you want to run, maybe you have a holistic report about your payroll to say, this is what the number typically is, within a certain threshold, you can actually run that through Payroll Control Center. So we are trying, SAP in their wisdom is trying to make Payroll Control Center the one-stop shop for running payroll. We're trying to work with them to make it even better. And People have some things about Payroll Control Center. It's not the simplest thing to configure, but once it is up and running, it is really slick. You can assign exception messages to people. It's pretty cool out there. Next slide, please. All right, so what are some of the benefits of Easy Reporter with TCC? So one, you can quickly create exception messages for you in TCC without ABAP. And all the data sources that you know and love from core HCM, payroll, time, HR, they're available to report on to put in your exception message. You can use the Easy Reporter engine to create very complex exceptions, right? Easy Reporter is pretty powerful, and you can create really complex stuff if your business process supports it. The best part is if you got to make changes to it along the road, it's not a rocket science change, right? You don't have to go through that code and retest process out there. It's changing a report. That's essentially what you have to do to make the change. Everybody's like, all right, so why do we do this? And they don't think about after it, right? Implementation is one cost, but then down the road, there's a cost of owning things, right? There's a cost of building anything. You have to change that thing that you built. There's a cost to it. The cost of changing the stuff that we built is lower, right? Because it's simple. Now we're kind of getting to the end. Vanessa, if you go to the last slide. So what's the bottom line? So to sum it all up again, we provide an SAP certified solution to help you move your data and business to the cloud, and we know it works. We have some experience in this, so even though the idea of the cloud is new to a lot of us, engage us early. We are here to help. We have staff that can help you pull apart your existing reporting processes, both Easy Reporter and ABAP based, and help you make the move to the cloud. We've already have some of the interfaces you'll need to help import your data into Employee Central, and we'd love to work with you to update those things for your specific migration. I hope you learned some valuable information about the move to the cloud today. Once again, my name is Stephen Gallo, and at this time, we'll take some questions.
Thank you so much, Stephen. So we have 3 questions from our audiences. The first one would be, can reports be delivered inside of Employee Central after it goes live?
Yeah, I think I said success factors earlier in the deck, but essentially what happens is you can create a tile on your homepage in success factors, and you can actually embed your reports in there. There's a way to set that tile up to call your report from your SAP system. So maybe you have a payroll manager, right? A payroll manager might want to run a report that you say, find me everybody who didn't get paid, so no net. That report, they wouldn't have to go into ECC to do that. Ideally, they'd have Payroll Control Center and it would do that for them, but if they didn't, they could have a tile in Employee Central, open up the tile, it would have a list of reports in there. One of them would be the no net report. They could run that for everybody that they have responsibility for, and it would deliver them to that in UI5, right? They wouldn't have to go through SAP GUI to do it. There's even ways to export that once it comes into Excel if you need to. Next question.
Okay, the other question is, does Easy Reporter work with custom fields?
Yes. Easy Reporter does work with custom fields. So whether you have a custom info type or data inside of the SAP system itself, or you built custom stuff in Employee Central, we see that a lot too. The nice part about the OData API is that it detects custom fields that you've built in Employee Central, and we read that metadata when we generate the fields in Easy Reporter. So any custom thing you built in Employee Central, we can bring in as well.
All right, thanks. And for the last question, when is the Payroll Control Center functionality available?
It is available right now. We have one customer who's about to go live with it. I will tell you, remember I talked about the Payroll Control Center is interesting to config. SAP is actually making it easier. They're changing a little bit of their config, I'm assuming based on feedback from their customers, and we're updating our stuff to do that too. So it's, I don't want to say it's challenging to implement right now. It's not, but it's going to get a whole lot easier in a couple months to put that thing in, even with our stuff. So if you're going to Payroll Control Center in the next few months, please contact us. So we don't write your exception reports by hand. Do it with Easy Reporter. It'll save you a whole bunch of time and money.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephen. For those who would like a reference, we are also going to send the FAQs to your emails after this webinar. So once again, thank you so much, Stephen, for presenting this topic for the day, and thanks everyone for attending. So we have other upcoming webinars that you may check out when you visit our website at www.SpinifexIT.com/events. So an on-demand version of this webinar would also be available after 48 hours. If you have any follow-up questions, just send it to us at info@spinifexit.com, and Stephen will be giving the responses as soon as they can. So once again, thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day ahead.